Alright, so I never thought I'd be the guy writing about this. Most of the time, I scroll Reddit to kill time at work or distract myself before bed. But what I went through, it feels like the kind of story you'd see on here and think, nah, that's made up. Except it happened, and it's still messing with my head. I grew up in a small town in Galilee. Nothing much ever happened there. People worked hard, argued about politics and religion, and dreamed about something better. I was just another guy trying to get by, working with my hands, dealing with family drama, and trying to stay out of trouble. Then I met him. Jesus. Yeah, that Jesus. At first, he just seemed like another guy from our area. Quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person you'd notice only if you paid attention. But there was something about him, you know? The way he looked at you. It was like he could see through all the layers of your excuses and fears. Honestly, it was uncomfortable at first. The first shock came when I saw him turn water into wine. We were at this wedding, and they ran out of drinks. Embarrassing for the family, right? But Jesus just changed it. No big speech, no drama, just did it. People cheered, laughed, got drunk, and I stood there thinking, what the hell did I just see? That was the start. And let me tell you, life stopped being ordinary after that. After that wedding, word spread fast. Small towns don't keep secrets, and suddenly everyone was whispering about this guy who could do things no one else could. Some people thought he was crazy, others thought he was dangerous, and a few of us just couldn't stay away. I started tagging along. At first, it was curiosity. But then, the more time I spent with him, the more I felt like my life had been sleepwalking until that point. He talked about love and forgiveness like it was real, not just words from a scroll. He looked at people society ignored. The poor, the sick, the ones everyone else called unclean, and treated them like they mattered. That hit me hard, because deep down, I never thought I mattered much either. But here's where it got wild. He started doing miracles in public, healing blind guys, making crippled men walk, casting out demons that made people scream like they were tearing apart inside. I know how it sounds. It sounds like a story your grandma tells you to scare you straight. But I saw it with my own eyes. And here's the kicker. Instead of everyone celebrating, the powerful people got angry. Like, really angry. The priests, the scholars, even the Roman officials started keeping an eye on him. You could feel the tension every time he spoke. That's when I realized following him wasn't just about inspiration. It was going to cost something. So here's where things got intense. The crowds kept getting bigger every time Jesus showed up somewhere. I'm not talking 20 or 30 people. I'm talking hundreds, sometimes thousands. Families dragging sick kids, old men leaning on sticks, women carrying baskets of bread hoping for blessings. It was chaos, but also electric. You could feel this mix of hope and desperation in the air. And Jesus? He never turned them away. He'd spend hours teaching, healing, listening. I don't know how he didn't collapse from exhaustion. Meanwhile, the rest of us, his closest followers, were trying to keep people from trampling each other. Imagine crowd control without microphones, barriers, or cops. Just us yelling, one at a time, while people shoved forward. One day, this massive group gathered, and we didn't even have food for ourselves, let alone thousands of people. I thought we'd have a riot on our hands. But Jesus? He takes a kid's small lunch, like a couple loaves of bread and some fish, and somehow feeds everyone. No fighting, no panic, just baskets going around and people eating until they were full. I carried one of those baskets, and I swear it never ran out. I kept looking inside, expecting it to be empty, but nope, more food. I should have been celebrating. But instead, I felt this knot in my stomach. Because if crowds this size loved him, the authorities were definitely going to come down hard. You don't pull off miracles in front of thousands of people and stay under the radar. That was the first night I couldn't sleep. It didn't take long for the pushback to hit. The religious leaders were furious. I mean, you'd think they'd be happy seeing people healed, right? But nope. Every time Jesus healed someone on the Sabbath, they acted like he'd burned down the temple. Rules mattered more to them than mercy, and he wasn't playing by their system. I'll never forget the first confrontation I saw up close. A group of Pharisees cornered him in front of the crowd and tried to trap him with questions. The way they asked, so smug, like they already had the answer. But Jesus flipped it on them. He asked them questions, the kind that cut deep, and suddenly they were the ones looking foolish. The crowd loved it. You could hear the whispers. Finally, someone standing up to them. But here's the thing. Humiliated men with power don't just walk away. You could see it in their eyes. They weren't going to let this go. I started feeling real fear then. Following him wasn't just about seeing miracles and hearing wise words anymore. It was like standing in the middle of a storm that was only getting stronger. And yet, I couldn't leave. Something about him made walking away impossible. It was like he'd already planted himself in my soul, and I was hooked. Still, I couldn't shake the thought. This is going to end badly. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being close to someone like Jesus. It wasn't all miracles and inspiring speeches. Inside our little group, cracks started to show. We were just regular guys, jealous, tired, sometimes angry. And the more the crowds grew, the more pressure we felt. Money became an issue. People donated to help us travel and eat, and one of us, Judas, was in charge of the money bag. At first, no one questioned it. But over time, I noticed him slipping away during meals or looking annoyed when Jesus told us to give money to the poor instead of saving it. It was subtle, but it put me on edge. Then there was the arguing. Who was closest to Jesus? Who mattered more? It sounds childish, but when you're around someone who feels larger than life, everyone wants to be noticed. I'll admit it, I got caught up in it too. Some nights I lay awake thinking, what if I'm just background in his story? What if I don't matter? Jesus always seemed to know what was going on in our hearts. He'd call us out without shaming us, but man, it stung. He once told us straight up, if you want to be great, serve others. That was not what we wanted to hear. We wanted glory. Looking back, that was the beginning of betrayal. Not just Judas's, but all of ours. We started caring more about ourselves than about him. And the weight of that realization still crushes me. If I thought I'd seen everything, I was wrong. The miracles kept getting bigger, louder, like he was turning the volume up, and none of us were ready for it. There was this one day, a funeral procession passing by. Everyone was wailing, the air heavy with grief. The dead guy was the only son of a widow. Her whole world was gone. And Jesus just walked up, touched the coffin, and told the young man to get up. And he did. I swear my knees almost buckled. The crowd went wild, screaming, crying, some falling to the ground. Me? I was terrified. Because healing the sick was one thing. But raising the dead? That crossed a line I didn't even know existed. Another time, we were caught in a storm at sea. The boat was about to split, and we were all sure we'd drown. Jesus wakes up, yawns like he just rolled out of bed, and tells the storm to shut up. And it did. Calm water, just like that. We all looked at each other, asking the same unspoken question. Who is this guy? Here's the thing, though. The bigger the miracles, the bigger the danger. You can't raise the dead and silence storms without the whole world noticing. Word spread to Jerusalem, to Rome, to people with power and armies. And instead of seeing hope, they saw a threat. That was when my excitement started to turn into fear again. Because I knew, deep down, miracles like this wouldn't be forgiven. By this point, it felt like we were living with a target on our backs. Everywhere we went, crowds pressed in, desperate for miracles. And right behind them, the Pharisees, the priests, the spies from Jerusalem, watching, taking notes, plotting. One day, Jesus marched straight into the temple, the holiest place in our faith, and flipped the tables of the money changers. Coins clattered everywhere, doves scattered, men cursed in shock. He shouted that they had turned God's house into a marketplace. I'll be honest, I froze. Because you don't just call out corruption in front of the temple leaders and expect to walk away untouched. That was the moment I knew. We weren't just on their radar anymore. We were enemy number one. And inside our group, the stress was showing. Judas especially. He started muttering under his breath, asking why Jesus didn't just take control. If he could calm storms and raise the dead, why not overthrow Rome? Why not claim power? I pretended not to hear him, but the bitterness in his voice chilled me. Meanwhile, Jesus kept predicting his own death. He'd say it calmly, like it was inevitable. But every time, I pushed it out of my head. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted the miracles without the cross, the glory without the sacrifice. Looking back, that was my blindness. I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. And the night everything came crashing down was closer than I thought. That night is burned into me like a scar I can't heal from. We were eating together, just us and Jesus. He spoke like he knew it was the last time. The mood was heavy, and I couldn't even swallow my food without feeling sick. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "One of you will betray me." The room froze. We all stared at each other, whispering, denying. "Not me, Lord. I'd never." My own voice cracked when I said it, and I hated how unsure I sounded. Then Judas slipped out. At the time, I told myself he just had an errand. But deep down, I knew. We all did. Later, in the garden, Jesus asked us to stay awake and pray with him. Simple enough, right? But my eyelids felt like stone. Every time I tried, I drifted off. By the time I woke for good, it was too late. Torches were lighting up the darkness, soldiers storming in, Judas at the front. He kissed Jesus on the cheek. That was the signal. The man we trusted, laughed with, ate with. He sold him out for silver. I wanted to fight. I even swung a sword and cut a man's ear. But Jesus stopped me. He healed the guy of all things. In that moment, I realized this wasn't going to be a rescue mission. He was letting them take him. And my heart cracked wide open. They dragged him away in the middle of the night. No fairness, no daylight trial, just shadows, whispers, and men who already hated him. We tried to follow at a distance, but fear gnawed at me with every step. Inside the courtyard, I could hear them shouting false accusations, twisting his words into weapons. People who once cheered for him now spat his name like poison. It was chaos, priests yelling, guards laughing, witnesses lying through their teeth. And he just stood there, silent. That silence broke me. I wanted him to defend himself, to call down fire from heaven, something. But he didn't. It was like he had already accepted it, like he was carrying a weight none of us could see. And then came my lowest moment. Someone recognized me by the firelight. "Weren't you with him?" My heart jumped to my throat. I denied it. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time louder, angrier. By the third, a rooster crowed in the distance, and his eyes met mine across the courtyard. I can't even describe the shame. It was like he saw straight through me, all my fear, all my weakness. I wanted to vanish. Instead, I ran into the night and wept until I couldn't breathe. Betrayal wasn't just Judas's sin. It was mine too. Morning came, and the whole city seemed to know. Word spread fast. Jesus had been handed over to the Romans. I pushed through the crowd just in time to hear the governor, Pilate, questioning him. Pilate looked uneasy, like he knew Jesus wasn't guilty, but the mob was screaming for blood. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" The sound rattled in my chest. These were some of the same people who once cheered him, who ate the bread he multiplied, who ran to him for healing. Now they wanted him nailed to a cross. My stomach twisted. Betrayal wasn't just in the temple or among us. It was in the crowd too. Pilate tried to wash his hands of it, but it didn't matter. The sentence was death. They whipped him until his back was shredded, jammed a crown of thorns onto his head, mocked him with words that cut deeper than any whip. "King of the Jews," they sneered while spitting in his face. I wanted to scream, to fight, to do something. But fear glued me to the edge of the crowd. Every lash he took, I felt like a coward for standing there. My anger burned at Judas, at the priests, at the mob. But mostly, it burned at myself. Because when he needed me most, I wasn't there. I followed as far as I could, but there was no getting close. They forced him to carry his cross through the streets, stumbling, beaten, mocked. Every step he took felt like a dagger in my chest. I wanted to run to him, to help, but I was frozen. When they nailed him to the cross, it was worse than anything I could imagine. The shouting, the jeering, the sound of wood cracking under his weight. It's etched in my mind forever. And yet, even then, he wasn't angry. He was praying, forgiving. I can't describe the mix of rage, sorrow, and helplessness I felt. Every time he gasped for breath, I felt like the world was ripping me apart. And the people around me, some were crying, some jeering, some pretending not to care. I kept thinking, how can the same crowd that followed him now cheer his death? And through all that, he looked at me, at the people, at the world, and said words that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I fell to my knees. My shame, my fear, my failures, they were crushing me. I'd betrayed him in thought, in action, in cowardice. And now I had to live with it. He hung there for hours, and the sky darkened like the world itself was mourning. I couldn't stop staring, even though every sight, every sound, tore me apart. And then, he died. The moment he breathed his last, something shifted. The earth trembled, the temple curtain tore in two, and I felt a hollow emptiness like a part of me had died too. I wanted to scream, to fight, to undo it all, but there was nothing I could do. We watched as his body was taken down, bloodied and broken, and wrapped in linen. Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea carried him to the tomb, and I followed silently. I couldn't even cry properly. My throat was too tight. The betrayal, the fear, the helplessness, it all pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't lift. I stayed by the tomb until the last stone was rolled into place. I wanted to stay there forever, staring, hoping somehow he'd come back. But life, cruelly, didn't pause for grief. People went about their days, and I went home with my head hung low, carrying the guilt and sorrow like a shadow I couldn't shake. It felt like the end. I couldn't sleep that night, or the next. The grief was suffocating. I kept thinking about his words, his forgiveness, the way he looked at me even when I denied him. And then, something happened that I still can't fully explain. Early in the morning, some women from the group ran to the tomb. They were screaming, panicked, breathless. He's gone. The tomb is empty. At first, I thought they were losing it. But something in their voices made me run, fast as I could, to see for myself. When I got there, the stone had been rolled away. The body was gone. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would explode. And then, I heard it, a voice calling my name. It was him, alive, glorious, standing there, patient, kind, with a smile that somehow held all the grief and all the hope in the world. My knees gave out. I fell, sobbing, laughing, shaking. I couldn't believe it. After all the betrayal, the fear, the suffering, he was alive. It hit me then, harder than anything else. Nothing, not death, not fear, not betrayal, could take him away. After that morning, everything changed. Following him wasn't just about witnessing miracles anymore. It was about understanding what he had been teaching all along. Love, forgiveness, courage, and faith. I realized that my fear and denial, my cowardice in the courtyard, were part of my journey too. I decided I couldn't go back to the way I lived before. I started sharing what I had seen, what I had felt, the hope that had been resurrected alongside him. I knew it wouldn't be easy. People would doubt me, ridicule me, maybe even threaten me. But I also knew I had to live in a way that honored what I had witnessed, his life, his sacrifice, and his forgiveness. The betrayal, the sorrow, the fear, they weren't wasted. They taught me humility, the weight of choices, and the importance of standing for what's right, even when it terrifies you. Looking back, I can see the full arc of what happened, how fear and weakness let betrayal creep in, how grief can feel unbearable, and how hope can return in the most impossible ways. Jesus' life, death, and resurrection taught me that even when everything seems lost, there's a chance for redemption, for change, for courage. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone who's ever been betrayed, hurt, or overwhelmed by fear, it's this. Don't run from your guilt or your grief. Face it, learn from it. And when the impossible shows up, hope, forgiveness, love, grab it. Life will challenge you. People will fail you. But the way you respond, the decisions you make in those dark moments, define the rest of your story. For me, following him changed everything. It didn't erase the pain or the mistakes, but it gave them meaning. And sometimes, that's the closest thing to peace you can get in this world.